In today's episode, we will go back over 200 years to 1821. We will go to France because there was an extremely brutal murder. A young woman was missing. The police quickly tracked down the murderer but had no evidence to prove the murder. There were no witnesses to the murder and no traces at the crime scene. So how to determine that he was the killer? How to bring him to the prosecutor and the court? All these questions will be answered in today's episode. Today, the police has a powerful tool in the form of technology. Science has made huge strides in analyzing evidence and finding it at the scene, as well as matching it to a specific perpetrator. Today we have tools that the police did not have 200 years ago. We often come across the concept of the perfect crime, usually when the case goes undetected for many years. Does the perfect crime even exist? Even with the best technology, there is still a person behind it. People are not perfect and are often wrong. Sometimes a trace that is missed, a lead that is not checked, and the lack of inquisitiveness in the police's actions make the investigations remain unexplained for a long time. On June 19, 1821, a passerby found the body of a woman in the woods near the farm belonging to the Smith family. The body was in a very bad condition. The perpetrator decapitated the victim. There wasn't much blood at the scene either, so it was assumed the woman had died elsewhere and the body had been dumped. In a small town, the news of what was found in the forest quickly became number one. The investigation was very difficult from the beginning. First, they had to find out who the victim was. In 1821, this could not be checked against a database or any system. It was impossible to take a DNA sample because no one had heard of one. Fingerprints were analyzed using a magnifying glass, and this method was far from ideal. However, the police was able to determine that Kelly did not return home. She lived 10 miles from where the body was found. In fact, this lead turned out to be correct. Parents recognized personal belongings of their daughter. Kelly came from a poor peasant family. Her parents worked hard on the farm. The 25-year-old woman helped them with all her strength and full commitment. But sometimes she liked to dress elegantly. On the day she disappeared, she had the perfect opportunity to do so. She put on her favorite white dress, put a hat on her head, let her long dark hair down, and went to visit a friend who was celebrating her birthday that day. However, she did not reach the destination. The friend thought that the girl was busy with work at home, so she did not come. She didn't blame her because she knew how hard life on the farm was. But the family became concerned when Kelly didn't come home last night. The father went to check on his daughter. Then he was horrified to hear that the girl wasn't there at all. The next day, a random man came across her corpse. She was lying well hidden under a tree, and the personal belongings she had with her when she left the house were scattered around her. There was also a gift she had made for a friend. A great panic broke out in the town. People were afraid for their lives, and women did not leave the area of their own farm. The place where the body was found has become an area of search. Investigators were looking for any evidence that could help identify the killer. However, there was no such evidence. It was not even known how the victim died. There was no severed body part, no murder weapon, no witnesses. None of the locals saw anyone hanging around. Such people were immediately looked for because generally people knew each other very well. This time, none of that. No one could say anything beyond their suspicions. People kept saying that if there had been a murder near the Smith farm, maybe Tom was the culprit. People remembered how his mother had mysteriously died 5 years earlier. When he and his father were returning from the field, they noticed her body lying by the road. The woman was dead, and the investigation was discontinued. The doctor stated that the woman died of old age, despite being 40 years. There were rumors in the village that it was the son who strangled his mother because she forced him to work. But the rumor was forgotten and everything was back to normal. After the death of his father, Tom was left alone. He worked from morning till night in the fields and only came home to sleep. He had no contact with other people because they were afraid of him. Few of their own free will ventured to his house or entered his fields. Tom chased everyone with pitchforks and threatened to kill them. The police decided to follow this lead. They went to Tom's house. He opened the door in surprise and asked what they wanted with reluctance in his voice. Police said they found a body near a field. They asked if he had seen or heard anything, but Tom denied it. Then one of the police officers asked him to show the clothes, including the shoes, that he was wearing on the day Kelly disappeared. The man led investigators to a room where he kept things for working in the fields: rubber galoshes, black pants, and a gray sweatshirt. At first glance, there were no marks on these things, and such marks would have to remain on the clothes if in fact he was the perpetrator. Nevertheless, these things were secured and taken to the police station. The police searched the forest, swamps, and fields for days, but nothing was found that would bring them closer to solving this difficult mystery, until the day when one of the volunteers entered the basement of the ruins of a nearby castle. Abandoned pants with traces of blood and a knife were lying in the room. These items were secured and taken to the police station. At that time, it was possible to distinguish human blood from animal blood. In this case, the worst-case scenario was confirmed. The blood came from a human, but science couldn't yet determine from whom. DNA will be known to the world in several decades. The prosecutor, seeing the tardiness of his subordinates, offered to send the evidence to Simon Roger, a scientist and chemist known throughout France. Simon Roger worked at the university. He was a physicist, scientist, and small business owner. His activity was based on analyzing the purity of water and food. After work, however, he was passionate about forensic science. Simon has had many successes under his belt. He helped solve several hopeless criminal cases, and his innovative methods in view of the case became the basis of today's activities. The police, however, would not even listen to the evidence leave their premises. They decided that they would explain the matter themselves and no amateur would spoil the evidence they had collected. Initially, the prosecutor agreed to let the police investigate further, but everything changed 3 months after the discovery of a knife and trousers with traces of blood. One of the policemen accidentally turned his pants inside out. Then, at the height of the belt, a patch with the owner's name and surname was revealed. It was Tom. This information made the people ridicule the work of the investigators. There was no end to mockery and jokes. However, the matter was more serious. For all these months, the killer walked freely and could have attacked another woman. People demanded explanations and asked why no one had checked the evidence before. On the same day, investigators questioned the suspect again. He, however, vehemently denied that the pants actually belonged to him, but had been stolen from him a long time ago. He also complained that he now had no pants because the last pair had been taken from him by the police. Again, the prosecutor had to let him go, but decided to involve Simon Roger in the investigation. Fortunately for the case, the evidence seized from the suspect was left in the room the whole time. Nobody touched them or tried to analyze them. Simon decided that examining the pants wouldn't help much. That we were dealing with human blood was clear. Then he came up with an idea how to connect the victim with the perpetrator. His shoe was used as proof. Tom testified that in the field he worked in the secured ones. On the day of his disappearance, he also had them on his feet and did not go anywhere outside the farm. Simon decided to take advantage of this. He secured a section of mud from the boot protector. Under the microscope, he meticulously and thoroughly analyzed the layers there. To be sure of his findings, he went to the village to take soil samples from the site where the body had been found and from the field and the vicinity of the suspect's house. The first layer consisted of earth and chicken droppings, so it could be assumed that it stuck to the sole of his shoe when the man left the house. There were chickens running in front of him, so it's not surprising. The second layer was grass. After leaving the farm, going towards the forest, you had to cross the lawn. The third layer was sandy soil with traces of quartz. Exactly the same ground was in the place where the corpse had been dumped. The fourth and last layer consisted of the same dust as in the room in the ruins of the castle. Later, everything was covered again by the first layer when the perpetrator returned home. However, that was not all. In the third layer, Simon revealed a white fiber. It matched the dress the victim was wearing at the time of the murder, so the culprit had to stand on it. All the clues fit together. Simon Roger thus proved his claim that the crime scene sticks to the victim. Despite this evidence, Tom pleaded not guilty. The court sentenced him to death, but stipulated that if he confessed, he would keep his life, but he would never leave prison. Moments before the execution, Tom told the prosecutor the details of that day. He didn't actually go to work in the field. In the morning after breakfast, he noticed that a lonely girl was walking along his farm. She was smartly dressed, so he thought she was from a good home and maybe she got lost. He decided to rob her. He followed her into the forest. The woman paid no attention to him. When he decided that they were deep enough in the forest that no one would notice them, he attacked the girl. With one blow, he knocked her to the ground. He checked what she had on her and angrily discovered that she had nothing of value. Then he exploded and in a fit of anger dismembered the body. He hid the head in the shed of an abandoned farm and his bloody pants and knife in the ruins of the castle. The man pointed out the spot and indeed the rest of the body was found. Tom was executed the next day.